Friends, welcome back to the Brave New Wear Show. My name's Christian. I know I've asked you this question very recently, but can you tell the difference between these two jackets? Probably not really. They're both North Face Nuptse jackets. They're both in black. They're both from North Face's main line. This isn't like North Face Purple Label. The one I'm wearing is in fact a men's medium, and the one that I'm borrowing is a women's extra large. So they're cut a little different, but overall they should be basically the same. The difference really is, I picked up mine last year. This North Face is about 10 years old. And when I initially saw my friend's North Face, I thought, it looks different. In fact, I initially thought, it kind of looks like it's a better quality. As soon as I came to that conclusion, I immediately thought, is North Face's quality going down the drains? With heritage brands, this seems to always be the common complaint. Old timers are always saying how the quality used to be better in my day. In my day, a pair of Levi's jeans would last you until a million years, and now they're all trash. But I usually chalked that up to nostalgia. We'll remember things as being rosier in the past. I never really had a good reference point. But now I have these two Nuptses that are virtually the same product, but obviously different. A couple of things I noticed right off the bat is, for one, my Nuptse seems a little shinier and possibly easier to rip, whereas this one seems more matte and a more secure material. The hardware and detailing is a little nicer. There's an internal pocket, which mine doesn't have. There's lining around the collar and in the pockets, which mine doesn't have. But they're both Nuptses. They both have that 700 rating. What gives? Alright, with all these things considered, I wanted to see if the materials were actually different. And looking at the tags, they are. My Nuptse is made out of a 100% nylon shell with a high quality 100% down filling. The older Nuptse, as it would turn out, has a 100% polyester shell with a lower quality down and a mix of recycled nylon as the liner for the jacket. This felt like an immediate reversal. The tags would suggest that actually my Nuptse is a higher quality. So at this point I have two theories. Number one, the North Face changed the construction of the Nuptse for better or for worse. Number two, one of the jackets, both of the jackets, are a part of some kind of special collection, some kind of unique Nuptse release. So the first thing I tried to do, naturally, this is a mountain climber's jacket, so we had to put it to task. I had to stress test the Nuptse in extreme conditions. Alright, here I am, testing the Nuptse in these harsh Minnesota winters. And by winter, I mean mid-October. This is my Nuptse. Let me check my phone to see exactly how cold it is outside. It's about 28 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm fine in this jacket. This is a perfect jacket for this weather. This would be fine. You could probably go on like a hike in this weather in this jacket. It's a warm jacket. I think that you would only really start to have a problem once it gets like below 0. So my Nuptse, newer one, flawless, pretty warm, perfect for this weather.
Round 2, fight.
Test number 2, I'm in the older Nuptse. So a couple of things. This is technically a woman's jacket. It's an extra large, so it is kind of really around the same size as my medium, but the sleeves are notably a little shorter. And of course, this is older. This jacket has been worn for like 10 years, so it's a little more worn in. I'm certainly still warm. This would be no problem. Am I colder? Maybe slightly. I don't know. If I had to make a decision, I would say my modern one is warmer. And even if that plays into the fact that it's cut slightly different, it still feels a little bit warmer. Next, I wanted to see if one material was actually better than the other. So I did some research online looking at different websites that talk about the textiles. To begin with, nylon is an older material. It's typically shinier and has more stretch than polyester. It absorbs water a little bit more. It doesn't catch on fire as much. Typically, it is less able to hold onto a colored dye. It is very susceptible to UV radiation over time. By comparison, polyester is a newer material. It is also a plastics base, has a lower strength to weight ratio than nylon. Unlike nylon, it's very easy to recycle polyester. That's why we often see recycled polyester in different materials or garments. Nylon can be recycled, but it's not as easy. Ultimately, it really depends on the application. There are places where nylon is better off to be used than polyester. It doesn't necessarily mean one is more premium in the way that you could think of like 100% wool sweater is typically better than 100% acrylic sweater. Ultimately, this is what I took away from doing a little research. Nylon is kind of considered like a synthetic alternative to silk because it's shinier, it's a little stretchier, and it acts more like an organic textile. And I kind of like that. I like that it's a little more premium and it's a little more luxurious, just like in its nature. And the fact that it actually fades because of UV is kind of cool because that's how typically natural fibers will fade if they are left in the sun for long enough. So the fact that nylon will fade, I don't think of that as a disadvantage, really. What about the down or lining filling in both of these jackets? North Face originally pitched it to mountain climbers because it's very lightweight. It can be like packed up into a small space, but when you put it on, it's super warm. And that is thanks to the down filling. Down is obviously it's goose feather that is collected and then put into the jacket. And typically down jackets, pillows, whatever, will have a rating starting at around 500, which is kind of the lower end. And the Nuptse is closer to the higher end with a 700 rating.
In theory, 50 grams of 900 fill power down will be just as warm as 100 grams of 450 fill power down, but it weighs half as much.
But like I mentioned, my down filling in my Nuptse compared to the older one is higher. What do I mean by that? So down typically has a ratio of how much of it is like the down and how much of it is just feather. So the ratios can be somewhere like, I mean, I guess it could be 50-50, but we usually see it like 70 down, 30 feather. My Nuptse has a down ratio of 90% down, 10% feather. Based on what I saw online, that's basically like the top of the line. Both jackets, both the old and the new, have the 700, warmth rating. How did that happen if the older Nuptse has a lower feather to down ratio? It is around, I think it was like 70-30. I think it has something to do with the polyester in the lining that they added. That must have something to do with making both Nuptses basically the same level of warmth. Because if you have more feather to down, you expect the jacket to ultimately be not as warm. So I think what North Face did was they used a basically lower quality down and made up for it by adding the recycled polyester. Why don't they always do this? Well, that's a really good question. What's interesting is, so the older Nuptse was made in 2011. Coincidentally, in around 2011, 2012, North Face came under fire because the down that they were using in their jackets, around 30% of it was sourced from rather unethical farms. And the unethical farms are farms that raise geese for foie gras.
Made from duck liver, we are looking at how to pronounce, with the typical French pronunciation, foie gras.
You had to force feed the geese to death, basically, to make this, and people were upset at North Face for using this kind of material. So what they announced in 2012 was they were going to move away from any farms that basically dealt with raising the geese unethically. And it's kind of interesting because this jacket came out, the older one came out right before they were attacked for what kind of materials they used. But it seems like they were already interested in moving away from solely using down feather to make their jackets warm. One of the reasons that not using all down might make the jacket less premium is probably because the older Nuptse with the polyester materials is harder to fold down and make small. It's not as light as my Nuptse. My Nuptse could fairly easily be folded into a small package, but the one with polyester seems a little bit heavier and a little more rigid. It's kind of harder to fold it up if you were to pack it away in your suitcase or whatever. Okay, last thing was I tried to identify if these two Nuptses are different models or one of them is a special edition or what is going on. I tried reaching out to some kind of North Face experts, people who collect or deal in vintage North Face. And I asked you guys on Instagram if you knew any accounts that you could direct me to. Anyway, I reached out to a couple people, and in the meantime, I tried doing some digging myself. The retro Nuptse that you can get on North Face's website right now seems to have identical construction to mine. That is the nylon shell and the all down lining. And I really don't remember if mine is like a retro version or whatever, but there's, it might be. It kind of seems like it is. Second, I found a eco-friendly model of the Nuptse that you can pick up on North Face's website as well. So is that what's going on? They're just two different models? I'm not sure. Eco-friendly version only released in 2019. The older jacket I'm looking at is made in 2011. When I started to hear back from the accounts that I reached out to, it's still kind of an inconclusive answer. One account in particular, NDWC0 on IG, helped me by looking into it a little bit and asking around. They also weren't able to find any more information, which is kind of a bummer, but check out their account anyway. It looks like they have a lot of really cool stuff. I wanted to give them a shout out because they spent the time looking to see if there was an obvious answer to what is going on with the models. Inconclusive. This is my prevailing theory as of right now. In the 2010s, before the Nuptse and puffer jackets started to come back into trend, North Face was deliberately trying to make their Nuptses look less bulky and less shiny. Basically, they were trying to avoid having their puffer jackets look like George Costanza's puffer jacket. So what they ended up doing is switching the nylon for polyester, and they were also kind of under attack for using unethical down. So the natural answer was, well, why don't we use some polyester in the jackets as well? That'll make them less bulky, and it will decrease our reliance on down feathers. Then, as the decade started to go, how it goes, it just keeps going. Then, as time moved on with Balenciaga's puffer coats and the Nuptse kind of coming back into vogue, North Face jumped on the trend. They created their retro version, which is basically the only Nuptse it seems you can pick up right now, and they emulated their original construction style. It's puffier, it's lighter, it's made out of nylon, and there's 100% down as the lining. That's my guess. And if you guys happen to know, if you're the North Face expert I didn't get out to and I should have, let me know in the comments or DM me. I would love to know if there's an actual answer to this riddle. If you know better, let me know. And as always, guys, I'll catch you later. Take it easy.